You think you're safe, but I don't know, I don't think we're safe anywhere.
The feeling of safety for so many along the Crystal Coast was stripped away this time last year when tragedy rocked the town of Atlantic Beach. Longtime visitor Randy Miller was murdered while preparing for a fishing trip early one morning. Tonight there are few leads, obstacles for investigators, and loved ones without answers.
Yes, Frank, it was the first murder in Atlantic Beach in more than a decade, the third in the town's history. Now, 351 days after the fatal stabbing, Randy Miller's wife, Susan, is opening up to me about what life is like without her other half and the painstaking wait for justice.
It's just such a change not to have him.
Loss is tragically all too common for Susan Miller.
And we lost our son 6 years ago, so Randy was my rock.
Susan met her soulmate, Randy, at an early age. They became high school sweethearts, and their marriage blossomed for more than 4 decades. Trips to the coast were common for this pair.
This is a picture of Randy and I on vacation in Ocean City. We had each other, to kind of fall back on, to pick each other up when we had bad days.
One of Randy's passions was being out at sea with a fishing pole in his hand.
He loved being out on the water.
That's the biggest thing I've ever seen.
He could just go out there and fish all day long and not catch a fish.
Good job.
He just loved to be out on the water.
And I remember riding the boat over, he said, John, life doesn't get any better than this.
And Randy spent a lot of his life with his best friend John McAlpin at Atlantic Beach.
We would get together in August to September. We'd go down to my house and fish the redfish every year. It was his passion. That was the best part of the year for him.
He never knew the best part of the year would soon turn into his final moments.
I was just so thankful that I got to talk to him. And that was the last that I heard his voice. It must have been a God thing, because a lot of times I wouldn't talk to him the night before because he was so busy getting everything ready.
That's what Randy was doing here, outside this house on West Atlantic Boulevard around 5:45 in the morning on August 29th, 2022. The 65-year-old was loading up his boat for a day of fishing.
I heard something really loud, a scream.
A scream seconds after investigators say Randy was stabbed in the heart by a stranger.
My next door neighbor was there and grabbed me and stopped me and said, something horrible's happened, John, you can't believe it. And as I walked out the door, he was laying in my driveway, and everything died from there.
Confusion came over John.
I had no idea what was going on. And all of a sudden, he started having trouble breathing. At one point, he said, I'm going, John. I can't breathe. I'm struggling. And I was looking, I'm like, Randy, hang in there. We're going fishing this afternoon, We'll get you fixed up. What's going on? He stopped breathing. He stopped breathing right there, and I was like, I couldn't believe it.
Randy took his last breath at 6:19 on the way to the hospital.
I had no idea that he was stabbed. I didn't know what had actually happened.
It was horrible. I mean, it was just like I was reliving the day that, my son passed away, 6 years ago, which, it was just a total nightmare.
Susan says life is empty without her husband. Now, a year later, there is still no arrest, no justice, no closure in his murder case.
I have sleepless nights because I just don't understand why this person took my husband's life.
I wake up at 5 o'clock every morning and go through it all over again. I just still can't believe it's real.
Their reality now is a fight to find who killed Randy.
Sometimes I do get discouraged, because it seems like it's been a long time, but I don't want to give up for Randy's sake. I always want to just say they're going to get caught.
And Susan has not been back to the beach besides to meet with investigators and the media.
We just don't have this happen down here, so it was kind of a shock for us.
It was the first murder in Atlantic Beach in more than a decade, the third in the town's history. Longtime visitor Randy Miller was murdered while preparing for a fishing trip early one morning.
Tonight, there are few leads, obstacles for investigators, and loved ones without answers. News Channel 12 investigates. Tyler Harden is looking into the case and brings us a candid conversation with the police chief.
Well, this is the first murder case Chief Jeff Harvey has worked without a quick resolution. This one happening early in the morning, a time when people go on a jog or walk their dog. And now while the community waits, local, state, and federal agencies are working against time to find the killer. Tonight, Chief Harvey tells me 350 days after the fatal stabbing, he's staying optimistic justice will be done.
I believe that it is solvable. I just think it's going to take some more time. It's going to take some luck.
Luck for authorities to find who killed Randy Miller on August 29, 2022. Atlantic Beach Police Chief Jeff Harvey was one of the first on the case. Now a year later, he's still working to close it.
We just don't have that smoking gun quite yet. Most of the time, homicides are done by people that know each other. And this was just one of those that we can't piece together as to why it happened.
The motive is still unclear. Randy's valuables were left at the scene. His truck and boat went untouched.
It was senseless. Nothing was taken. There was no point for it.
This surveillance video from the morning of the murder shows 3 suspects walking up and down Atlantic Boulevard.
This was not their first time breaking into vehicles anyhow. They seemed to know what they were doing. They had their faces covered. They had gloves on.
Then shortly before 5:45 that morning, one of the suspects broke off from the others and hid feet away from Randy. At the time, the 65-year-old was walking in and out of the garage, getting his boat ready for a day of fishing.
I don't think Mr. Miller did anything to be targeted other than loading up his boat. I honestly think he was at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Chief Harvey says seconds after Randy put a cooler in the boat, the suspect made a move.
You can see him on the video to where he just takes off in a crouch, and you hear both of them scream. They come together, they fall apart, it's done.
Randy was stabbed in the heart and died 34 minutes later. An autopsy reveals the knife went 6 inches into his chest. Chief Harvey says the suspect stood over Randy for 30 seconds before neighbors came out and they ran off.
It took approximately 1 minute and 30 seconds for the first officer to show up. In that time, the perpetrators were able to get away in their vehicle. We missed the car by about 15 seconds. So that's frustrating.
Investigators are focusing on this getaway vehicle, but this town goes from 1,500 to 30,000 people in one weekend.
Once we can identify 100% vehicle and then start working with the perpetrators.
Chief Harvey says they have sifted through hundreds of tips, hours of video, DMV records, and cell phone logs with the help of the FBI, Secret Service, and North Carolina SBI. But at the agency's Raleigh headquarters, there's a backlog.
I think that's the major holdup, and then just kind of piecing together what we have, because we don't have anything substantial from the initial point of the homicide happening.
So this case has not run cold?
I wouldn't say it's run cold. It's slowed down because of waiting on technology to get us the information that we need.
Technology this agency has to enhance grainy images like this. But for nearly 9 months after Randy's murder, investigators held onto it before releasing it to the public.
We're not finding things on our own. We're not doing it. Let's put it out now and see if somebody may notice something. So could it have been put out sooner? Probably so. If I had to do it again, would I do it sooner? Probably so.
In the days and weeks after Randy's murder, detectives went door to door, talking with neighbors and business owners, and conducted interviews with people of interest. At one point using a canine to track scents and a metal detector to find the murder weapon, but it didn't turn up anything.
This is the house.
Chief Harvey took me back to where it happened.
What was the reason for this homicide? We don't see any clear reason for it.
He shared this message for the person who did it.
I hope the guilt just tears them up to where they do turn themselves in, because nothing was gained and everything was lost, you know? Somebody can clear their conscience, do their time, do the right thing, and they get to move on. Meanwhile, it doesn't matter what happens, Susan's still without a husband, the friends are still without a friend, and, you know, our citizens are still concerned that this can happen again.
And Chief Harvey tells me he does not know where the suspects are from, whether from Eastern Carolina or out of the state. He called in the SBI to help an hour after the murder. The state agency is the lead on this investigation with more tools at their disposal.
I have hope, I really do. It's not a cold case and they're going to catch him.
Family and friends of longtime Atlantic Beach visitor Randy Miller holding on to faith for closure tonight. The 65-year-old was murdered while preparing for a fishing trip a year ago today. News Channel 12's Tyler Harden is looking into the case and brings us where it stands now.
Tonight, there are a few leads, obstacles for investigators and loved ones still without answers. It's a painstaking wait for justice while investigators work against time to find the killer. Investigators say that person has no connection to Randy Miller. The husband, father, and friend would have turned 66 this month. Tonight, 365 days after the fatal stabbing, his wife is staying optimistic justice will be served.
I keep thinking, are they going to catch these guys? You know, but I just don't want to lose hope.
Hope. It's what Susan Miller holds on to nowadays for closure in her husband's murder case.
And I don't want to give up. You know, I don't ever want to give up on Randy.
Randy was the victim of a fatal stabbing by a stranger. It happened here, outside this house on Atlantic Boulevard, shortly before 5:45 in the morning on August 29, 2022. The 65-year-old was loading up his boat for a day out on the water.
He's been doing this for 4 or 5 years, fishing down there, and you just don't hear this, you know, this happening down here.
I couldn't believe it. It took a long time before I could finally believe it.
Randy's best friend, John McAlpin, found him moments before he died. Since then, John has pushed investigators for answers.
They warned me right from the first day. They said, John, this isn't days, this is months and years that it could take to solve a case like this.
Randy had everything done right. He had the garage light on, he had the outside light on, and this still went down. So it was just one of those incidences that I don't believe there was anything that could have been done at that point in time to prevent it.
This mysterious murder happened under the watch of Atlantic Beach Police Chief Jeff Harvey. He says the biggest break in the case is this home surveillance video of the suspects breaking into vehicles around the time of the murder, and this grainy image of the getaway vehicle, a silver Nissan Infiniti, outside a business.
I started thinking back, you know, what else can we do? You know, do I need more manpower? And that's when I went to the board and asked about the technology.
Technology in the sky by way of new traffic cameras around town.
It's not Big Brother, it's for public safety, but it also would be very beneficial for things like this that happen. I think we could have had this thing solved within a week. And that kind of eats at you.
It's a way to see who drives on and off of both banks, since this town goes from 1,500 to 30,000 people in one weekend.
Amber alerts, stolen vehicles, traffic accidents that happen outside of our presence. If we have it on camera, we can make a better determination. We can keep our public safer.
He says the extra eyes will hold people accountable, even when people don't speak up.
I'm still of the belief that even though we know that there was 3 perpetrators, they're going to talk at some point in time.
If and when they do, there's a $55,000 reward, a combination of donations and state dollars.
I wish in this world we didn't have to offer money to get information, but we have it there, and I think it's a substantial amount for information.
Information leading to the arrest and conviction of Randy's killer.
I just hope that they understand that they took a good man out of this world. He was a high school sweetheart to his wife, a man who raised his family and had some hardships in that family, worked hard, was a good friend to many, and just wanted to enjoy his life.
Good job.
Everybody loved him to death. He was an amazing individual, and that's why this is so hard to continue living without him.
It's something Susan struggles with every day.
I have sleepless nights because I just don't understand why this person took my husband's life. I'm fearful for other people because they won't stop. I mean, they have no value for life. They need to be brought to justice.
And now, since we began airing this investigation back on August 15th, Chief Jeff Harvey tells me that the department has received new tips. That's why if you have any information involving the murder of Randy Miller, contact Atlantic Beach Police or the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation. Chief Harvey says to expect the traffic cameras up and running before year's end. This includes at the bridge, beach access, and the main intersections. He's also considering an additional officer per shift.